Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing some figure studies and I want to share with you my process and the way I construct everything during a figure study. So as you can see me right now, I usually start with a line of action. If you don't know what a line of action is, it's basically like what tells you the direction of the body movement. It helps you with the flow of the body. So really defining and learning how to do a line of action really helps with making the body poses feel a lot more flowy instead of rigid. You see that after doing the line of action, what I try my best to do is define two main points, which are the shoulders / torso and where your kind of hips / underwear would be. Because these 2 points really help me personally define proportions for the body. So I start with the shoulder line, and that helps me define the chest, and I also make a line in directing me to where the chest is, so the middle of the chest. So then in this case would be where the cleavage is in the case of a woman. In the case of the man, it would be where like half of his sternum would be. And I try my best to do that line so it guides me in the movement of the sternum, right? Then I will go into the underwear shape, and that one really helps me direct her hips and legs and just lower body in general. And I will also add a middle line in that case, not always, but sometimes I will. That middle line helps me understand where the belly button is going to be and all of that. And I usually do this as an underwear shape because you can define where the hip / legs are going to be turning, right? So I then move on to the legs, which for me personally are my easiest part of the body for me to do personally. It's also the part that I like to do the most are the legs. So I jump on into the legs, and sometimes I get it right on the first time, sometimes it takes me a few tries, but basically I define where the hips are gonna be. You have little fatty deposits of the hips where that's kind of where the bone is. And I like to define that part. And then I'll go into the thigh / knee and really define where the knee is going to be. And then move on to the lower leg. Lower leg usually has one part that's straighter and one part that's rounder. Not always, depends on the body pose. In this case, it wasn't the case, but I did that on the drawing. But it's kind of the guidelines that I use in my head to portray a movement, because sometimes you can go really realistic but not portray the movement, so I focus more on portraying the movement and doing it in my own style. So only after the legs are done do I jump into the arms, and usually this is the case unless it's a pose that's very arm oriented or the arms are occupying a lot of space and I need them to kind of get the proportions correctly. But only after the legs do I go into the arms. You can see that right now I did the shape for the sternum, I did the underwear shape, and then I went to the legs. That helps me a lot. And one thing that you can definitely do while doing the legs is if you want to define a line of action for a specific leg. This really, really helps me sometimes. And you really kind of need it sometimes, especially for the back leg. In this case, that line, I used the line of action line to follow through to where the leg was going to be, and I exaggerated to make it more visible in the drawing. So it really helps sometimes to add a line of action of its own to a leg or to a limb in general, to an arm, to whatever, so you can figure out the direction of that limb. And only after the legs do I go into the arms, and I try my best to make the shoulders really showing, have their own shape. I've struggled with shoulders a little bit, but basically make sure the shoulder has its shape. Then the upper arm is straighter and the lower arm has more dimension, more 3Dness, more rounder shapes, and I try to portray those as I see them. And honestly, the feet and the hands I don't give too much attention to, as you can see. They're not the focus for me in these studies. And then I start refining every single shape and the areas that I think need a little bit more definition. I go over the lines a lot, and I want to make sure that by doing this, I get a lot of chicken scratchy kind of lines. This isn't technically the ideal thing you should do. A lot of people or a lot of teachers will tell you you should do broad strokes in only one line at a time and no like chicken scratches. I chicken scratch a lot. It's a bad habit that I got, and it's something I do constantly. I also, even when I don't chicken scratch, I go over some lines to define them and make them better, which is also probably a bad habit. So I want to make sure to let you guys know that this is not the ideal. You should try your best to do this in broad strokes and do it in like using your elbow as the point of movement instead of your wrist. This is an exercise that you should always try to get better at, and it also protects your wrist a lot of the times from getting strained. I when doing these studies, I tend to use two different techniques. I tend to do either that like broad stroke technique that is like the classical way of doing it, or I do this type of studies. And I like to share both because reality is I learn different things from different types of studies. The broad strokes and everything really helped me get a lot flowier movement and make the bodies look a lot better. So I did do that for a really long time. But then this type of studies helps me really look into the shapes of each and every part. And if I have to redo it, if I have to re-scratch over a part, I will. And it helped me also define my own style and stylizing shapes and body poses my own way. This is what helped me. And maybe it will help you in the same or maybe in a different way. Or maybe you try this style and you don't really like it that much. But for me, this really helps me define how I would stylistically do certain things when figure setting. So keep that in mind when you're doing your own figure studies, and let me know what you thought about this cute little small video. Bye guys.